And what was that sound we just heard? It's not our usual theme music. Have we been overrun by the ghosts of Halloween this week? I think so. And that's right, it is Halloween week on Behind the Lens, and you all know how much I love Halloween and a BTL radio show Halloween. I'm Debbie Elias, film critic, creator, and host of Behind the Lens, where we go behind the lens and below the line with those movers and shakers, the film and TV makers, the producers, the directors, the writers, the actors, the cinematographers, production designers, sound designers, costume designers, sound mixers, sound editors, film editors, VFX gurus, composers, and so many more. And if you looked at my calendar right now with all the interviews that I've done over the past 10 days and that are upcoming, wow, a lot of potential Oscar nominees are on my plate for the next couple of weeks. So I'm very excited about that. One of the big ones is Jeff Cronenweth, who is the cinematographer for Tron Ares. I'm very excited about that one. And should have Donald Mowat popping up shortly to talk about Tron Ares and the incredible work of his makeup team. And quite a few more pending. But let's get into the Halloween spirit here. To celebrate my favorite holiday of the year, I've got some chilling, spooky, terrifying, and horrifying tales for you as PEDRO KOS breaks down his new film, The Horrifying in Our Blood, while JON BERARDO talks about the blood-drenched noirish, The Mannequin. First up, let's take a look at In Our Blood. Directed by Oscar-nominated documentary filmmaker PEDRO KOS, with his first narrative feature here, In Our Blood masterfully blends psychological mystery with chilling horror. The film weaves a twisted tale of reconciling with the ghosts of our past and confronting the complicity we share in creating a world that preys on the most vulnerable. Directed by PEDRO with script by Mallory Westfall, In Our Blood stars Brittany O'Grady, E.J. Bonilla, Alanna Ubach, Krisha Fairchild, Leo Marks, Bianca Comparato, and Steven Klein. In Our Blood, nothing is as it seems when filmmaker Emily Wyland, beautifully played by Brittany O'Grady, teams up with cinematographer Danny. An amazing E.J. Bonilla performance, folks. Their purpose is to shoot an intimate documentary about reuniting with Emily's estranged mother after a decade apart. When her mother suddenly goes missing, possibly succumbing to the addictions that first tore her family apart, Emily and Danny must piece together increasingly sinister clues to find her before it's too late. An intense narrative that blends documentary realism with genre elements. In this exclusive interview, director PEDRO KOS discusses the film and his freshman foray into narrative filmmaking with this story, which explores themes of humanity and vulnerability. As PEDRO explains, the story was first inspired by a script from Mallory Westfall and producer Aaron Cogan, and first presented to him back in 2012. Yes, it's taken that long for the idea of a script, an initial script, to become malleable and turn into a ready-to-shoot script, final product. As you'll hear, it was Aaron who encouraged PEDRO to take the leap from documentaries into the narrative feature with this story. And after watching In Our Blood, I'm so glad he did. And when you see the film, I think you'll agree. The thematic and emotional layers are superbly crafted, as is the genre meld that brings shocking horror into the mix. And boy, you don't see it coming when it comes. As we bite into the making of In Our Blood, PEDRO discusses casting and some superb performances, most notably by Alanna Ubach, Krisha Fairchild, and E.J. Bonilla, who immerse themselves in their respective characters, all of which are a testament to him, given that Pedro has not worked with actors since his days in college theater. And I have to say, it's very refreshing to hear him talk about his approach to working with the actors and, quote unquote, creating a safe space for them to experiment and bring their characters to life. Cinematography is also a big part of bringing In Our Blood to life, and we break down Pedro's collaboration with cinematographer Camilo Monsalve in developing the film's visual grammar, camera movements, which are extremely crucial in the third act, lighting, color, and the importance of shooting in Las Cruces, and how that influenced the film's visual tonal bandwidth. And this is all just the tip of the iceberg. So take a listen as director Pedro Kos talks the chilling In Our Blood. A word of warning to you, though. We don't give away any spoilers in this interview as to the big reveals and twists that unfold. So, take a listen to Pedro Kos. Hi, Pedro. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very happy to be speaking with you this morning about In Our Blood.
Well, it's an honor and a pleasure.
I am so used to a documentary from you, and now to see In Our Blood, wow! This is a really fantastic and interesting film. The story itself is intense. It sparks curiosity before you finally hit us with this great twist and reveal that makes you sit up and go, whoa! I'm curious how this story found its way to you, because the way you have directed this, the way you've shot this, you give us this intense realism that really sparks a documentary narrative genre blend almost. So I'm curious how the story made its way to you.
Well, it made its way to me many years ago. I believe it was either 2011, 2012. I think it might have been 2012. My dear friend, manager, and one of the producers of this film, and one of the originators of the idea, Aaron Cogan, approached me with the draft of the script from the extraordinary screenwriter Mallory Westfall. Mallory has been a writer on Fear the Walking Dead, Chucky, amongst many others, and I devoured the script, to be very blunt, and I was blown away. But I was also really scared and trepidatious, and I was unsure if I had I don't know if I have what it takes to do it justice. And Aaron was like, no, this is exactly why you need to make this film. And I saw in the script an opportunity to continue to explore the themes and ideas and stories that I actually do in my documentary work. And that was really exciting, to continue to shine a light on a theme of a humanity and show a world that's unseen by so many and often ignored in violent ways. And I think a story of how the world is preying upon the most vulnerable is not a fantastical story. It's a very real story, and I think I was excited to explore it with a genre lens, but keeping it really grounded and keeping the humanity at the center, and that the humanity that's been overlooked and ignored right front and center, to the point where, like, Danny, our cinematographer, and who is sort of the point of view that we're seeing this film from, is someone who comes from the other side of the line, who is an outsider and who's just trying to have an opportunity and have a chance. And I think that to be able to craft that into a genre film in this hypercharged way to look at our world was super exciting, and that's why I wanted to dive in and tell the story.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the character of Danny, and we're seeing a lot of this through his camera lens as he's shooting. And also, to a degree, Emily and her smartphone, her iPhone, as she's shooting things. But talk to me about working with your cinematographer, with Camilo Monsalve, because you mentioned grounding, realism. This is so real and so grounded. And we see and we feel the disconnect and the disparate nature of humanity and society, and the haves and the have-nots, which is where Danny's viewpoint is so important. And what you and Camilo have done, you really structure and frame and block your shots to keep us within the eye of the lens, so to speak. You're not expanding this into panoramic vistas that go on for miles. This is very, very contained, as if seen through the viewfinder. So talk to me about developing that visual grammar with Camilo, and also the choice for the saturated beauty that we see of Las Cruces with the blue sky and the dirt. You have eye-popping beauty that happens in here against the sadness of the have-nots.
Exactly. I mean, I think that Camo, or Camilo, but Camo to me, because he's such what an extraordinary artist. I mean, I was connected with Camo through a very dear friend, and he is one of a kind. He is such a beautiful, beautiful soul, and his work, I was drawn to him for so many reasons. I mean, it's impossible not to fall in love with Camo's work. Both his fiction films and his documentary films are poetry. And I think the perspective is so important, because it's not only just the cinematography. That cinematography is the character of Danny, and through whose eyes we are actually looking at this world of ours. And this is not some fictional world. This is very much our world of the United States, of New Mexico, of Las Cruces in the present. And Camo has just the most beautiful humanity, and he sees, and his photography, and I think the other thing was like seeing his photography was just so special. One of the things that Camo and I did right at the beginning, we drove, when we came for pre-production, to Las Cruces. Camo and I did the road trip that Emily and Danny do. We drove from Los Angeles to Las Cruces, and he was constantly photographing. And through that journey and arriving in Las Cruces, we, I think, found the look and the life in the scene from the other side of the line, the life seen from the unseen part of the world. And I think Camo just brought that to life with the colors and seeing the vibrancy that exists there, but that we're ignoring. It was kind of really bringing things to life that we're not seeing, and to amplify that in a beautiful way, in a way that felt also grounded, but also to highlight beauty and humanity that we're not paying attention to. So that was really sort of our motivation. And Camo, and I also have to throw in EJ here as a collaborator. The beautiful EJ and Camo did something that I've never seen before. It's so unique that they've created a beautiful ballet that for much of the filming, and Camo is doing for a majority of the operating, but there are a couple of scenes that EJ did some of the operating as well. But they developed this beautiful physical ballet that we rehearsed for a while to really get the two of them connected and to create the character of Danny. And so for most of the time, Camo is operating and EJ is connected to him physically, like holding onto his shoulder. Mm-hmm. To really create the performance of Danny. The performance of Danny is not just EJ, it's EJ and Camo, and connecting with the other characters, the other people in the film. And so that was just a joy to discover.
Well, another joy for me, and I think probably for you, is you get to work with actors in this film.
Yeah.
I know that you've got long ago theater, you did some theater and you directed theater, so you have that foundation. But you actually had to direct actors, and lots of them, in different kinds of scenarios, especially in that third act in the basement. How was that experience for you, having to hone in on your direction when it comes to people?
Well, it was a joy, actually. It was thrilling, and it was I kind of considered it having, co-creators. We're all creators in the sandbox, and and I think the way I obviously I brought some of my theater background. I studied theater in college, theater directing, and that was really part of the process. But also creating, for me, it was really trying to connect, on a human level, and with Brittany and EJ. Not only do I see, not only did I have great collaborators, but I have dear friends, and as well as with Krisha Fairchild, who's just astounding, and Alanna Ubach and Bianca Comparato and Steven Klein, and what I wanted to create in a way is create, as I said, a space of there's no wrong answers. That there is I wanted to kind of create a sandbox where they felt safe to experiment, where they felt safe to do something out there and unexpected, but also grounded. And so there's a lot of the process started with conversations about the characters and where they're at and where they come from, and about just life. I remember so vividly when EJ arrived in Las Cruces, and for beginning of rehearsals, we went out one night and started for dinner and drinks, and kind of talked for late into the night, and I kind of got to know Danny then, and he so beautifully began to find Danny, and by the end of the night, I was not talking to EJ Bonilla anymore. I was talking to Danny, and getting to know Danny, and I think that was so incredibly special. In a way, it mirrors the work that I do in documentaries, getting to know people, connect with people, and understand them, and understand where they're coming from. And in this way, there's just one more layer. But it was But I think people got all the cast got that, and then I think we really bonded that way. It was really special.
Well, I have to say, I'm glad you mentioned Alanna and Krisha, because their performances, they just knock it out of the park. That interview segment with Alanna's character of Sam in the first act of the film, astounding. And then Krisha, later on, when we get big reveals, both of them I don't think I blinked watching them.
Wow. Yeah. I'm not. You're not alone. I mean, I felt the same way as I was seeing them in character, and like behind a monitor. I felt exactly what you're saying. I couldn't blink. I was just so connected and drawn. And I think what Alanna and Krisha do throughout the film is just astounding. And I think that it shows a testament of their extraordinary talent and their commitment to being grounded real people. I think one of the things that Krisha did as soon as she got to Las Cruces was to meet the people. Actually, we filmed at the Hooper Clinic in the film is actually the community of hope of Mesilla Valley in Las Cruces, and they do very similar work that you see them doing in the film. Helping people who are experiencing homelessness find housing and medical services, and Krisha met with people from the clinic and people from the Community of Hope, and she really wanted to dive in and understand the work that they were doing. She came with an open heart and just threw herself into the character of Anna, and it was just like amazing. And Alanna, oh my God, she, when we first conversation that we had, it was lightning, and she was like, I get this. She's like, there's no acting here. This is just reality. And I think it was also a very personal project to her. And the 2 days that we were filming with Alanna, like, you could hear Debbie, you could hear a pin drop in the whole set. Like, everyone was so silent. Like, the first AD came to me, he said, like, I've never been on a set so quiet before. Like, you could, and she just held us. We were all in awe, she was just extraordinary, and kind of really brought a lot of work. We had a lot of conversations, Alanna and I, about the character of Sam and how much and the trauma that she has been through, and she went to places that I could have never dreamed of. So.
Yeah, she's absolutely spellbinding. That's the word for Alanna, spellbinding in this role. Yeah. Now, I have one last question for you, Pedro, because here you are. It's your first time really working with horror. You're working with actors. It's a narrative feature. What did you learn about yourself as a filmmaker in making In Our Blood that you can now take forward into future projects, which will hopefully include more narratives?
Well, first of all, thank you. I would love that. It was such a thrilling, just one of a really special experience. And I think for me, it was what I've learned. I think what I've learned is that this is a genre, and I love. For me, a genre is such a unique and wonderful opportunity to take a look at our world in a hypercharged manner, right? And to see to make us try to take a double take and kind of look deeper into our own world, and I was so thrilled by that. But I think one of the things is to not be afraid to take risks. I think maybe going back to the beginning when Aaron sent me the screenplay, and I told him, like, I don't know if I can, I could do this justice. I don't. And he said yes. And I think throughout the, and so I was like, okay, well, I'm thinking about this. Is this too much of a risk? Is this, like really tethering it only to the two cameras? And all the creative risks that I took, that we took. I can't say I, because it's not me. It's not me. It's the whole team. But I think one of the things is, like, do not be afraid to risk. I think what I learned is that the biggest risk is not taking a risk at all. And so for what I'll take a little bit more is to run towards the fear. I think that's one of the things, and to be open. Sometimes that's really scary, right? To be open to others, to other points of view, to other to do things that it's out of my comfort zone, and I think I'll take that from it.
Well, you would never know that you were out of your comfort zone with In Our Blood. It's a wonderful film, Pedro, and I would never have even thought that this was your first narrative feature, because you really have meshed all of your best skill set pieces with this story and really brought it to life. So well done.
Thank you. That means the world coming from you, and spread the word, and it's also a testament to an extraordinary team. From the producers on, to everyone else. I think it was we were all I was very fortunate to be playing the sandbox with the collaborators.
Well, here's to you playing in more sandboxes, Pedro. I hope we get to chat again in the future. This has been wonderful.
You're the best, Debbie. I do too, and I long for that day. So let's make it happen.
Well, then get to work. So,
Yeah.
thanks, Pedro, and you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. And that was director Pedro Kos talking about In Our Blood. And you can see In Our Blood right now in theaters. Perfect film for Halloween week. Now, it's time to get a bit bloody, a bit supernaturally creepy, a bit mysterious, and a bit noirish, thanks to writer-director Jon Berardo and his new film, The Mannequin, that transports us hauntingly through time from a glorious black and white prologue to a grisly exorcism. Written and directed by Jon Berardo, The Mannequin stars Isabella Gomez, Lindsay Levanchi, Shireen Lai, Maxwell Hamilton, Gabriela Rivera, with Crystal Martin and Jack Sochet. Now, in The Mannequin, Liana Rojas is a creatively starved stylist assistant. And she discovers that the historical downtown Los Angeles factory building where her fashion designer sister mysteriously died is haunted by a serial killer posing as a headshot photographer for film studios who brutally murdered and dismembered his victims half a century earlier. This knowledge forces Liana and her friends to find a way to free themselves from the curse that seems to be plaguing anybody that goes in this building and escape the sinister ghost before they lose their own body parts. The Mannequin is, I gotta tell you, it is delicious. And as you're about to hear, Jon is a creative voice that is beyond visually expressive and understands character, understands space and spatial relations, and understands the importance of sound to deliver a fully immersive cinematic experience. Not only does Jon discuss the film's creativity, twists, and jump scares, and trust me, there are some good ones, but also the economical approach to filmmaking, especially when you're an indie filmmaker. Giving the backstory of his inspiration for The Mannequin, Jon drew inspiration from the 2020 pandemic and created mannequin art during lockdown while living in his own loft in downtown LA. When he was finally ready to make the film, he realized his loft wouldn't work for filmmaking and found another downtown LA loft that satisfied all of the film's logistical challenges and needs. As we examine the making of The Mannequin, you'll learn how important and challenging location and lighting was for Jon and cinematographer Jonathan Pope, especially with the building itself, a former textile factory from the 1920s, and the current freeway that runs nearby. And anybody in LA, you understand when I say freeway, challenging, part and parcel to the loft itself in this building, in this 1920s building, sound design came into play and is meticulously executed on multiple levels by sound designer David Eichhorn, who had to strip away freeway traffic sounds and recreate a sonic ambiance to fill the large loft space. Using static effects and the contrast between the loft's modern and vintage feels, Jon, in this conversation, highlights the particulars of David's work. And then there's creating a visual and emotional contrast with the home of one of the characters versus the loft, which brings in negative space and contrasting color. A real standout in The Mannequin is the period-perfect headshot makeup on the models. It's makeup and hair. They're phenomenal. As well as some fabulous practical bloody horror makeup, which is superb. And then a couple practical effects are imposed upon that. Only a couple. There is one fantastic scene in the film that will have you jump out of your skin. And that was purely an accident. It was not choreographed. It was not planned. But scared the bejeebus out of people, and John kept it in the film. And of course, we talk casting. So take a listen to writer-director Jon Berardo talking the hauntingly bloody goodness of the Mannequin. Well, I got to tell you, John, one thing that's amazing is the Mannequin. I had so much fun watching this film. It is so creative. The twists and reveals are fabulous. You've got great jump scares here. And the fact that you really focus this on just 2 locations. So it's very economical from a filmmaking standpoint.
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
You got to
Very
think
economical.
Yeah, we got to think about the economical part when we're talking indie films. But the way you
this movie was made that way, for sure.
The way you've structured this is so wonderful. I love how this opens with black and white. We're transported back in time. It looks like the 1940s based on the hairstyle, the photo session. Then they get a little skeevy, and then we get color introduced in the form of red, blood.
Yeah.
Always a wonderful sign of things to come. And then you pop us, shortly thereafter, you pop us into the present day and take off from there. Where did the idea for this story come from? What sparked this in you?
Well, it's such a crazy, place that it came from, because in 2020, we were all sort of like mannequins ourselves, right? We were just like stuck staring through windows. And in 2020, my first feature, originally titled Den Banger, was supposed to premiere at South by Southwest. And about 5 days before the premiere, it got canceled. And, we still were very lucky the movie got out there, but as a filmmaker that was just about to release their feature debut, I was just kind of stuck inside figuring out, not only, what's happening with the world and, are my loved ones okay, but what do I do next? What do I do? And I had a roommate years ago that filmed, I live in a loft in downtown LA, actually, myself. And I knew I wanted to write a movie that took place in downtown Los Angeles in a loft. And I had a roommate years ago when I went to USC who shot a movie with mannequins. And I had these mannequins, stored on my deck. I had them in the garage. And I thought, I'm just going to start doing, mannequin art with these during the pandemic. I hadn't really not much else to do. So I created, I have, one of them coming out of the wall. I have, where the arm stumps are. I've got, light bulbs coming out. And it was just a really kind of, weird, fun, bizarre project that really turned into the film itself. And I was it allowed me to almost, in a way, grieve, these, hopes and dreams that you think you're going to have for yourself. And really just sort of, write another movie for the cast and crew. And knowing that we had a budget, limited budget, and basically that's how it started.
Wow. Now, did you shoot this in your own living space, in your own loft, or did you find another loft?
No, we found a loft. So it was originally written to take place in my own loft, but and I even got we got the movie, the financing started with it filming in my loft. But, when I started the reality of production, I would have had to move into a hotel, while we were shooting. And also just logistically, filming in your own home isn't necessarily a recommendation for a lot of filmmakers. So when you're done shooting, you need to go home and decompress. You need your space. It's sacred. And so pretty early on, I would say, at the beginning of the summer of 2023, we filmed late summer, August, September, but I would say around May was when we started location scouting. And we found Loft 1923 in downtown Los Angeles. It's legit right off the 10 freeway and in the Fashion District. And it's this beautiful relic of a building that was actually, we kind of used the history of the building itself You know, we don't know if there was a serial killer there or if it's, you know, like how mannequins were involved there. But we do know that the building was built as a textile factory in the 20s.
Wow. Well, you feel the age of the building in the film from the interior, actually. And it's something that I really love that you and your DP, that you and Jonathan did. You really make use of the light from all of those windows.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you get some fantastic lighting in there. And then obviously you're using bounces and things like that within it. But you create these nooks, these corners of private moments. But everything looks, it has a vintagey feel. It has a 1930s or 40s feel with that love seat.
Yeah.
And then the palm trees. So you really bring in history into this. So you believe that this ratty old mannequin that's laying there, that's kind of dirty and dingy, really has been around that long.
Yeah.
I thought that was very, very cool that you did that. Now, once you had...
Yeah, well...
Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, with the lighting, what's very interesting is on one side of the loft, there was like a blaring street light that we could not cover. It was like a security light because this building is actually in a pretty, I would say, like more dangerous part of downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, we couldn't access this blaring light, but it was really cool because this light, what it would do is it would cut through the windows and would create these beautiful geometric shapes and lines on the ceiling. And it really gave it that, like, you know, film noir kind of vibe to it. But we had access to the other side of being able to light. And that was the side that the freeway was on. And so what Jonathan did, which was really smart, because we were, I mean, believe it or not, we shot this movie in 12 days.
Wow.
And because we had such tight timeline, we only had, basically, we had like two setups within the loft. We had like the nighttime kind of look, and then we had like the daytime kind of look. And this loft is massive. Like, I mean, it's a lot bigger in real life than you would think on camera. I mean, if it looks big on camera, it's bigger in real life. And so, you know, like we essentially, you know, had these two sort of back and forth lighting setups that we would use, and then we would kind of block around where the lights were in a way, because the amount of time it would take to turn things over just wasn't, you know, economic for us. We couldn't afford that. So, you know, and then of course when the 50s came, we had to block a bunch of light off because that freeway didn't exist back then.
Yeah.
So it was, you know, a fun little challenge.
And now knowing where this building is, kudos to your sound designer, David Eichhorn, because the sound you would never know. Number one, there's a freeway outside. Mm-hmm. Number two, you get the great sound within a loft from when it's empty to when Sophia has it set up, and then when Liana has it set up, and you have that flooring, and that flooring is unmistakable. So, and then the footsteps on the cement steps that lead up to that space. So your sound design is fabulous.
He did a fabulous job, David. He it's funny because, you know, I had a long time with him to work on this because he's LA based, and initiation, the sound designer, was in Australia. So I was only in Australia for a few weeks to be able to work with him. Whereas I was able to like work with Dave like hands on, you know, for quite a bit of time. And, you know, kudos to him, because he essentially what he had to do, because we knew that the sound was going to be a thing. So from the beginning with our on-set sound mixer, we said, like, it's just part of the world, you know?
Yeah.
The freeway, it's like, you know, when you're in a room and you hear the air conditioner going, this is our air conditioner. This is our atmosphere. And Dave, you know, did such a great job, because even though you're like, well, this is what we got to work with, Dave, he stripped as much of the original audio as he could of traffic sounds. And, you know, there were obviously some great moments we wanted to keep, you know, some, like a horn blaring at the right time that we kept in there. But he was able to basically strip it and then kind of recreate it to give that feeling you just mentioned, like adjust the balance of the reverb when the loft is full, when the loft is empty. the sound of the shoes. Like, it was just, it was almost a math in how he went about it.
Well, and I have to say, what he does with that static effect, the static sound effect that interrupts music that's playing on the radio or whatever they're using to have some music to fill the space when they're in there working on fashion and design. That static effect is so cool. And then the way you have the lighting, and I don't know if you did this practically or visual effect, but then to have it flicker to coincide with the beats of the static.
Yeah, that
gorgeous.
Lighting, believe it or not, the lighting was actually written in the script, the flickering of the light. And so that was all done practically. But the static in the music, all of that was a decision that was introduced and added, believe it or not, from our editor in post. Because when we were doing Sophia's possession scene, one of the early, we knew that, like, and we had test screenings, and, you know, that was a very difficult, like, figuring out the way to cut that scene, because, as I mentioned earlier, this loft is really, really big. And in a typical horror film, in the way I like to cover it, I love following our characters, you know, from either points of voyeurism or directly behind them or leading them in front of them, and just allowing long moving masters to kind of be the spine of the shot design. It's almost like you're on stage with a play and you're following the actor on stage. And when we were doing this scene, just from the massive size of this loft, we realized, like, there's no way we can play this out, you know, in that way. We had to cut around it. And whenever the ghost appeared, it just, the ghost was so far away. How could we bring the presence of danger closer to the audience? The music was up then, and I think, honestly, I don't remember who came up with it, but I want to say Christina, the editor, she came up with the idea of, we had music there because we knew that it would make the scene kind of feel a little less slow for the audience. You know, we got feedback in early things that was a slower scene. And then we added music, and then suddenly nobody had issues with it being slow anymore. Then, you know, the static idea came after that. So it really was a collaborative effort. And then Dave came on board, and he just took it to a whole new level. He's like, I'm going to bring the music from the old 50s back into it with it, and I'm going to blend some of that. And we, like, you know, I don't know if you've ever had, like, your phone ring next to a speaker, but that cellular interference that happens that we're all so used to. So he added a familiar sort of like iOS technology element to it as well.
I mean, I love the use of that static sound, because it very much sounds like you've got a 1920s or 30s radio and you're trying to get a signal, because the wattage of towers was not that strong back then. So it is just fantastic. I just fell in love with that. I have to tell you, John, I fell in love with that. Now, you counter this in the loft with Nadine's house. And it's much cozier, it's golden, it's warm at the party. She's annoying, she remains annoying, but then we get the darker hues and the under cabinet lighting in the kitchen and the blues, and we get a little more negative space. You're not really using any negative space in the loft, but we do get some negative space in Nadine's house at night, in the bedroom, in the kitchen. I love the contrast. What were your conversations with Jonathan like to develop the contrast between those two locations?
Well, I know Jonathan he's just such a visual, you know, mastermind, and he, I know, really wanted to make sure that the house had they felt like two totally different levels of danger. And I think that negative you're talking about was something that we immediately latched onto when we found the house. And believe it or not, the house is one of our executive producers' houses. And so we were able to get that house for a very quote-unquote reasonable price, if a price at all. So ultimately, Jonathan Lee, the owner of the house, who's one of our EPs, he, and this was his first movie to work on, and it was just him getting to see like blood all over his beautiful marble floors was just like amazing for him. And but with the lighting, there were so many opportunities and little crevices because much like the loft had that like geometric, angular kind of look, but like you had mentioned, it looked like it came out of the 50s, or even the 30s. Like it has that old time, shape vibe to it. Whereas the newer one, whereas there's similar geometric shapes to the space, it has that brand new, modernized feel. And I wanted to, with the haunted house, you watch a haunted house movie, we're used to seeing the types of wallpaper, the wooden stairs, the creaky wooden floors, all of these elements that make the haunted house like what a haunted house movie is.
Mm-hmm.
How can we do that with a more urban approach and also a more modern urban approach? And that's kind of, how we came about that. And in reality, the house was just it is so stunning. The window, just the glass windows, everything it gave us a visual spectacle to present to the audience, because even if it's not a scary scene, when you have that much space for the audience to look around in, their eyes are going to just naturally wander. It sets the tone perfectly.
And the fact that you've got all those glass windows in Nadine's house and all of the windows in the loft, that ties it together too, and it gives you a metaphoric layer. With everything, it's open, you can see it, but what's happening you really cannot see. So you've got that dichotomy and that rubbing of contrast happening, which adds another layer of fear.
Mm-hmm. And it, not to give it, not to reveal the ending, but it also has very much an element of one of the twists at the end.
Yes, it does aid in that. Now, the makeup, I have to say, the model makeup on each of the models is period perfect, beautiful. Maybelline red lipstick, or Max Factor red, which was popular back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. That makeup is stunning. Then we get a different kind, a horror makeup. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Ali Shehorn, our makeup artist, she is phenomenal. And I got to say, I don't know anybody that works as much as her. She's always working. And there's a reason, because she's good. And this was my first movie to work with her. And I actually, believe it or not, I connected with her years ago on Instagram, just because I was like, oh my gosh, this makeup artist does like really cool practical effects. Like, I'm going to follow her. And when we were putting the mannequin budget together, I knew we needed kind of like a ragtag team. And I just randomly hit her up. And long story short, I've got my makeup artist for life now. Ali is one of those makeup artists that you could, if you say, I need a zombie that's split in half with guts coming, you'd be like, okay, I can do that. And she can do it, fast. You say to her, okay, I need a Marilyn Monroe makeup, glamour style. She's like, okay, great. I'm going to need a little more time for that. It's just so funny because her strength is 110% special effects score. But, I said to her, I was like, you got the beauty makeup down too. But what I loved about her, which I think a lot of actors really appreciate nowadays too, when it comes to a lot of the glamour and the beauty makeup, a lot of actors nowadays love to, give their 2 cents. And, we were a collaborative team, and I know that she was very much happy to let the cast kind of take the lead in some of their more modern glamour makeup for the party scene, anything like that. But Ali and her assistant Alyssa, they just did a phenomenal job. And we I would say it's common to have to wait for the blood rig and the cleanup. You just plan your budget around that. But Ali was one of the fastest people on set. She, there were no issues with turnaround time. She was quick. like I said, we shot this movie so fast. I had about, I would say, anywhere between, on average, 2 to 4 takes per shot. Some takes or some shots I got a few more. Some we got in 1 or 2 takes. And a huge testament, to that is Ali's, professionalism and ability to work on a fast-paced set.
Just fantastic. And the visuals are so important here, and the reveals that you have with them, with the makeup, with the mannequins, just terrific. Now, I'm curious about your casting. How challenging was this casting for you, Jon?
Not at all. So it's funny you ask that. If you look at, the credits, there's no casting director. And that's because I wrote it for this cast. After initiation, I know that there were a lot of people on initiation who really kind of saw the movie's release as a splash, if you would, and so I really empathized with that loss, obviously, myself, and I wanted to do another one for us to really just power through the strikes. We got the interim agreement. And, just prove to them that, I'm here for them. And I love working with, Matt and Lindsay and Isabella and Shireen. And it was just a privilege to be able to have them back. And I would say, reading and hearing the feedback on the movie, the one thing that everybody just really resonates with is the bond between the cast. And that's because that bond is real. It really is.
Max, I loved what he brought to the character of Peter. My God. You think he's going to be a throwaway early on in the film, that he's just a moron, and you give him a great arc, so the third act, he's anything but a moron.
Right, yeah. And it's funny, too, because, a huge part of when I was writing the script, because, I wanted to write something scary, and I wanted it to be scary, and so I don't, as an almost, pushing 40, it's hard for me to watch movies that scare me nowadays. Sure, I can watch something that scared me when I was a kid, but, you watch these YouTube ghost hunter videos, they have some really great, chilling moments, but also they're kind of silly and funny, and I was just so inspired by that culture of, paranormal ghost hunter social media. It's just so fascinating to me. And I think that a huge part of why people think Peter is a throwaway character is because of that. Because, you go on YouTube and you're like, oh my gosh, what does this person do for a living if they're chasing ghosts at 2 a.m., right? Are they monetizing this? How do they take their lives seriously? That's literally the questions that come to my mind. But then you watch a show like Supernatural, with Jared Padalecki, and basically that show takes the paranormal ghost hunter very seriously. And there's a Banana Republic suave kind of vibe to the ghost hunter in that show. And Peter's arc, we kind of utilize those themes to build that arc. And Max is a class act actor. I went to college with Max as well, so believe it or not, Maxwell Hamilton, Lindsay Levanchi, Crystal Martin, and Jack Sockett, and I, all 5 of us, we all went to UCLA together.
Oh my!
Crystal and I were in the same year. Lindsay was a little younger than us, and Max was a little younger than us. Jack was a grad student, and we've known each other for over a decade. And it's just I knew Max, if anybody could flip the switch like that with a character and do it really well and steal the show at the end, it would be Max Hamilton. So it's just he's just a phenomenal actor.
And he definitely steals the show.
He also produced it. So.
He definitely steals the show with his performance in that third act, let me tell you. I've got a big question for you, though, Jon. I've got to know here. How well did actor Jon, as the building manager, take direction from director Jon?
Oh, man. Well, it's funny because I wrote this role just thinking, what larger named actor could we get to come on set for a day, to try to sell this movie internationally. but then the cast read the first draft, like, we'll do it if you play the role. So I was kind of stuck with it, and I would say it makes sense because, you know, the ending of it and just like, it is kind of like a wink and nod, sort of, I don't want to use the word meta, I think it's way overused in this genre, but it really kind of is, you know, a meta approach to the ending and having the director, you know, appear in some way in the film. And I think that was a huge selling point to the cast. And as a director, acting, you think, like, I can do this. And, you know, I did acting in college as a director. Of course, I wasn't an acting major, but I loved learning it. And, you know, I feel like as a director, learning how to act allows us to really connect with what the direction that we're giving our cast. And basically, you know, I just listened to them. I said to them, tell me what you think I should do. And I basically allowed them to direct me in this.
Well, I think that actor John did a wonderful job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. It wasn't easy. It really, you know, when I watch a movie and the director's the star of it, it's a true testament to the team behind that movie. Because I can't imagine what it would be like for a director to just always be on as an actor as well. You know, even just for my short scenes, it was very challenging.
You know, when you're wearing all those hats and when you can't see what's in front of you and you have to guess in your head that what you're doing is right, that's tricky. It's mentally taxing, John.
It is. And I remember Maxie gave me a direction because, like, apparently I was saying all of my lines in an upward way, like doing like this, and then maybe like this. And, like, I didn't know I was doing that. I had no clue. Like, it was just a performative thing that, like, as a director, you catch it immediately when you're watching someone. But as an actor, like, you can't tell those things, you know. But I was lucky to have, you know, the cast and crew have my back on that.
Will we see The Mannequin 2? What did you learn about yourself as a filmmaker in telling this story, making this film, that you can take forward into future projects? And hopefully, The Mannequin 2 will be one of them.
That would be amazing. You know, it's funny, like, I would say with my first movie, we really wanted to position it for a sequel. And so this time around, mentally, I'm telling myself, like, you know, like, if, you know, that would be cool if it happens, but I didn't want to make the movie with that. So I loved hearing people asking about that because it really, I mean, a good horror movie, whether there's a sequel or not, should end with the potential of a sequel, in my opinion, because it keeps the audience wanting more.
Yep.
And those are the horror movies we hear about, you know, for the end of time. You know, a great horror movie is like a great play. It can be redone over and over again, and it's going to mean something different to every audience that watches it. So I feel that what I can take away from The Mannequin that I really, you know, learned was the ability to create a scary and effective sort of tone and jump scare. But, you know, Initiation, I looked back at it after it came out and thought to myself, you know, I didn't direct that movie to be scary. I really did. Even as a horror movie, I went about it differently. Whereas this one, I wanted to, you know, not just, you know, focus obviously on the characters which come first, but I needed it to be scary. I needed there to be some good jump scares. And I wanted the audience to have fun. And so I feel like I've been able to take, you know, what I've been able to find, you know, some great fun jump scares, a thrilling ride, and I can bring that to a movie that does have substance and it does say something about the world that we live in. And I will also say that voyeurism is one thing that I'm very excited to continue exploring even more so. And nowadays with cameras and where cameras can be positioned, it really gives us as filmmakers an opportunity to think outside of the box and how we cover stuff and what those mean, you know, for the audience. I played a lot with that in The Mannequin, just with, you know, thinking about the POV of the mannequin, POV of the ghost, bringing that into, my next work. For Mannequin, the sequel, Mannequin 2, Mannequin, there's absolutely, I would love it. I think there's so many fun ideas that, the casting could have thrown around, but one that I really, really like is kind of the origin story of Jack, more so, because I think a lot of people want to hear more about Jack and his murderous ways.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I could see another sequel that picks back up to a whole new group of people that experience his possessive terror. So the good thing is that there's a lot of cool ways that could go.
There are so many ways that you can go with this one, John. But boy, I'm happy that you went the way you did with the Mannequin. This is so much fun. I think my favorite jump scare in the film is at the 43-minute mark. So it comes right about midpoint in the film. Of course, I love the jump scares early on in the black and white segment. But that 43-minute mark one, that's the one that really got me. And
was that where the head fell off? The Mannequin?
Yes.
So yep.
Yeah.
That would have been my guess at that time, yeah. That one gets it, and it's so funny, too, because believe it or not, that head falling off was a mistake. That turned into an actual, point for the movie. So basically, and that's why at the end of that scene, she puts the head back on and then it falls off again because the lash that was holding the head onto the body ended up, defuncting in that process. But it ended up working perfectly and created a great jump scare.
Yeah, it did. John, this has been wonderful getting to talk with you today about the Mannequin.
Thank you. I honestly, this is I gotta hand it down and say the best conversation I've had about the movie so far. So thank you so much.
Oh, I'm
so
glad.
Loved the question. I loved it.
And hopefully we'll get to chat again in the future.
Oh, absolutely. And hit me up. I would love to just talk about movies anytime with you.
Oh, same here. And that was Jon Berardo talking The Mannequin, which is available right now on digital, VOD, Blu-ray, and DVD. No excuse not to see it. Perfect viewing for Halloween Day, Halloween week, or, as far as I'm concerned, any time of the year. And that's all the time we have today. You've got a couple of terrific horror films to check out for Halloween, but don't forget to hit your local theater and see the masterful work of Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. It is one of the best films of the year and a hot contender for upcoming awards, be it hair and makeup, costume, some impeccable performances by Jacob Elordi in particular, as well as Oscar Isaac. Guillermo del Toro never ceases to amaze me with his masterful brilliance. So, happy Halloween, everyone. Until next week, I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens.